Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming and welcome to today's workshop on the SBA's new Paycheck Protection Program, which just opened up Friday. So we're a few days into all figuring this out. We actually hosted a workshop specifically on this topic on Friday, the day itself that it opened. But there's a lot of things that were unknown then. And now that we have a whole 3 or 4 days of more experience and familiarity, and because we had some technical issues with our last call, we did want to offer this workshop as a follow-up. And we're very pleased to have Jason Alansky from Banner Bank here to kind of guide us through an overview of the program and then to go into some questions and answers. Move to the next. As a bit just about who I am, my name is Raj Bable. I work with Oregon Rain. We are a nonprofit that exists to help support rural entrepreneurs get up and thrive, as well as rural towns figure out what cultures of entrepreneurship can look like. I work with Oak Ridge, Lowell, and Veneta, and I have a team of colleagues, including Corey and Ariel, who are both on this line. I think Stephanie's here too. And so we're all here to help you however we can, and very excited to be able to be of service in this huge time of need. I also have my own business. I have a tea company called Young Mountain Tea, where we direct import teas. And if you ever have any interest in talking about that, I'd be happy to, but that's for another time. A little bit of just back-end housekeeping before we dive into this. Please do mute yourself when not asking questions. There's the tendency for some kind of background sounds to come through, and we're trying to minimize that. So to do that, we'll show you a slide in the next second, but please do stay muted when possible. Also, we do find that in this time of social distancing, it's really surprisingly impactful to have your faces showing. So please do turn on your video if you can. Yeah, I see some smiling faces already. And then, yeah, the chat feature in Zoom is a great way to converse, not only with the speaker, with Jason, or with our team, but with each other. So we do hope you use that. And to do that, here's a little screenshot of how to do it. If you hover your mouse over the screen where all the talking heads are, on the bottom left is the feature to mute or unmute yourself. And then about 2/3 of the way to the right, there's a chat feature, which when you click on will pop up a window on the far right column. It might look slightly different depending on your setup, but that's the basic gist of it. And yeah, we are moderating that chat box pretty frequently, so please do use it. And then just as a quick primer, as I mentioned, Oregon Rain, we are a nonprofit that gets invited in by different towns to help support the creation of cultures of entrepreneurship. And the forms of support that our work takes vary in shape and size. We really adapt them to the needs of the community. I hope that all of you on this call are already aware of our work and working with one of the people on our team. If not, please do reach out to me. My email is Raj, R-A-J, @OregonRain.org, and I can connect you to figure out how we can support you. Right now, we are, as an organization, working with 20 cities across Oregon that's spread across 5 counties, and we're very lucky to have the support of a very diverse set of stakeholders. So it's through all of their contributions that we're able to host workshops like this. So please do relay your thoughts and gratitude if you know anybody in any of these organizations, so we can make sure we're recognizing the people that help make these types of events happen. And in terms of the types of events that we are happening in this era of COVID, the way our work looks is similar to yours, a lot of very remote-driven interactions. We do have 2 standing events every week that we hope you'll join us. Every Monday from 2 to 3, we have a workshop tied to different aspects of business growth. Ariel just did one today on social media. I'm going to be doing one next week on how to go online, and we've got a list, and I'll show you in a second. But yeah, every Monday from 2 to 3, we have a workshop. And then every Friday at 9 a.m., we're hosting what we're calling entrepreneurial support meetings. And this is really for anybody who has any kind of business challenge or personal challenge as a business founder to come together, because in these times of crisis, we do need each other more than ever. So please feel free to join us. You can register through Eventbrite and visit our website to see the links to all those Eventbrite pages. And then, yeah, in terms of those Monday workshops that we have coming up, here's what we've got on the docket. Next Monday, I'm going to be doing a workshop on how to go online. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, if you have a brick and mortar business, that this is the time to figure out how to sell through the internet, and we'll be overviewing the basics of that. The following week, we have our executive director presenting on how startups can introduce different tips for sales and marketing. And then finally, at the end of the month, we have 2 investors from the fund managers from the Cascade Seed Fund sharing their perspectives on what it takes for small businesses to weather this kind of storm. So with that all said, let's cut to the real reason we're here. Jason Alansky is, again, the branch manager for Banner Bank in Veneta, and we're very lucky to have him here. So I'll just pass the microphone over to you, Jason, and just please let me know as you want to advance the slides.
Thanks, Raj. So hi, everybody. My name is Jason Alansky. As Raj said, I'm the branch manager and AVP for Banner Bank in Veneta. I'm also the president of the Veneta Fern Ridge Chamber of Commerce, and I also am a small business owner in the community as well. I've definitely seen firsthand the challenges that our small businesses are facing during this current crisis. And hopefully today I can give you some information and maybe some perspective that can be of help to everybody. Today, what I'm going to do is give a small overview of the Payroll Protection Plan, a very, very brief recap of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and then give you a little perspective on what this whole process has looked like from the bank side. So Raj, you can advance the slide there. So the PPP is a loan program provided by the recently passed CARES Act and handled by the Small Business Administration. It's important to know that you have to apply for this program through your bank. Any business in operation on or before February 15th, 2020 that has fewer than 500 employees is eligible to apply. This includes nonprofits, sole proprietors, and independent contractors. There are a couple different calculations used to determine the loan amount that you can get based on your business type. But in general, the loan amount is going to be limited to 2.5 times your annual average monthly payroll. Or if you weren't in business all of last year, it'll be your average payroll between January 1st, 2020 and February 29th, 2020. It's also worth noting that any individual pay above $100,000 annually won't be counted in that calculation. A lot of these loans are designed to be forgiven. However, if there are any unforgiven loan proceeds, then that repayment is going to be deferred for 6 months following the disbursement. Payment on this is calculated on a 2-year term with 1% interest. Now, as far as forgiveness, the full loan amount that you get from the PPP may be forgiven if it is used in the following manner. So this is really important. At least 75% of the funds that you get through the PPP have to be used for payroll and payroll-related costs. No more than 25% can be used for things like group health care, mortgage interest payments, rent or utility payments, interest payments for any other debt incurred prior to February 15th, 2020, and or to refinance an economic injury disaster loan. In addition, your number of employees or your FTE must be maintained, and you cannot reduce your payroll by more than 25% in order to have your funds forgiven that you borrowed. Banks may decide on their own how to handle requesting documentation from you to prove some of these numbers. But I will tell you that the guidance I'm giving my clients currently is that you should pull together, if you have it, your 2019 941 tax form or your 2019 W-3. That's probably something everyone would have. You're going to need some way to prove your payroll costs. You will also need to know your average FTE and how long you've been in business. I know that a lot of the clients that I've been helping over the last couple days have been wondering how to handle calculating the number of employees, because that's something that's asked, and the guidance I've been given and what I've been telling them is to look at not actually, you know, I had Joe, I had Bob, I had Janet. Look at the FTE that you had throughout the year, because that's going to give you a cleaner number, and it's not going to set you up to fail if you had several employees filling one role throughout the course of a year.
Jason, could you
if that makes sense.
stands for?
I'm sorry?
Could you explain FTE?
Sure. So the full-time equivalency is what you're looking at. So you know, you're looking at 40 hours is one FTE. So every 40 hours that you're filling in your business, that's going to qualify for that number that you're going to want to use to get your total number of employers or
So
employees. I'm sorry.
if you had like 2 employees at 20 hours a week, that would combine to 1 FTE.
Yeah, yeah, that is how you would calculate that. You know, in that case, you may want to. I mean, either way, yeah. If as long as you're calculating it the same way, both before and after the loan, it's going to come out in the wash. That would be fine either way. You'll come up with either the same or a smaller number. So yeah, you'll be fine. All right. I also wanted to just quickly mention that the SBA does have another program that may be a good fit for a lot of our small businesses, and that is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. I bring it up because I know that many of the small businesses I've spoken to are very aware of the PPP because of the media attention, but not so much the EIDL. And this is something that any business within the United States and DC can apply for. It has to be applied for directly with the SBA. You do it through their website, sba.gov. It can provide up to $10,000 that in most cases does not have to be repaid. The important thing to note, though, that if you are going to go apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the PPP, the amount you receive from the EIDL is going to decrease your possible forgivable amount through the PPP. So you're not able to double dip and get forgiven on both. So if you were to get the full 10,000, that's 10,000 that if you did receive it from PPP, it would not be eligible to be forgiven. You can definitely find out more about that, and you can apply for that through sba.gov. And I would advise everybody to take a look at that. So that's just really quickly the high level what I have for the actual program. I wanted to leave a ton of time for questions. I also just wanted to address a couple things that I know are probably a question in some people's mind. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the behind the scenes perspective on the loan process for the PPP and how banks are dealing with it. It is important to note that everything I'm about to say is my opinion and just my observation as someone who's been in banking for 15 plus years. It just seems important to share it. So I just want everybody to know that first and foremost, everybody involved in this understands the importance of this loan program, and we do desperately want to help our small businesses and our communities. And with that being said, every business does have a duty to protect itself and its shareholders at all times. So typically, a program like this, especially since this is an SBA program, a government program, it may take months or years to be developed before it's even offered to anybody. After it's made available to a bank from the SBA, the bank may take months to review it, to weigh the legal and financial impacts, to decide how to interpret every word in the text, to make sure that they're following every single rule and staying compliant so that they don't put themselves or their borrowers in any type of potential trouble. This is all before a borrower even applies, at which point the bank and the SBA must work together to underwrite the loan, which can take weeks. So the CARES Act that created the Payroll Protection Plan is at this time barely a week old. The final guidance on this loan was pushed to banks late Thursday night, hours before anyone was expected to begin processing applications. So we've taken a time frame that might be months, and we've condensed it down to a couple hours, really. Both politicians and the media have made some claims that I think are very optimistic about the speed at which money would change hands through this program. And I think it's created some expectations that unfortunately not everybody is able to meet. as of just this morning, I know that banks were still receiving updated guidance on how to process the loan requests and what exactly should be on the application. So I know that the SBA and participating banks have all been working around the clock to get their arms around the program and to help our struggling small businesses. But I think it's just important that everybody realize that the process just simply can't be instant for anyone at all. And I know that time is of the essence. And, I would say that from a government, a banking, a regulatory perspective, this program is moving very quickly, extremely quickly, faster than anything I've ever seen in this industry. So obviously the importance of getting everyone the money that they need to survive is first in everyone's mind. And I am sure that it will happen. It's just not maybe the walk into the bank on Friday morning and walk out with the cash that some have reported. Obviously that didn't happen. We're at Monday now. So anyway, with that, I would turn it over to questions, Raj.
Great, thanks. And Jason, really, I said this before we started the call, but thank you for being the sort of primary vehicle through which information and these funds can flow. I think what you're providing for the communities is very needed and very appreciated by everyone. So thank you. We do have a number of questions that have been coming in. It sounds like a lot of folks are curious about sole proprietors or self-employed who maybe don't have more traditional payroll or don't have payroll.
Right.
Are they eligible, and what advice would you give them?
Sole proprietors and self-employed folks are definitely still eligible to participate in this. And you're not going to have the same payroll records. What is important is that you have some way to prove the money you're taking as earnings, and those earnings that get passed along to you are going to be essentially what you're going to be using for your payroll. So I know that that's going to be the type of thing that's going to be very complicated and it's going to take a lot of one-off situations. Some of these aren't going to be the ones that just immediately go through and get funded very, very quickly. They may take another set of eyes and set of hands to get them in the right shape so that the SBA will recognize it and give you the money. But I think the best thing you can do is come to your bank with the most complete tax records that you have. I understand not everybody's filed their taxes for 2019, but anything you might have, bank statements, any type of records showing what you're taking out of the business is going to be really, really important and helpful.
Gotcha. So just to confirm that we got that one. If there's any indications in any records that you have that show the money that you're taking out of the business, like for yourself, that would be considered sort of an equivalent of payroll for sole proprietor selves?
I mean, that's the best that I have at this time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if there's follow-up questions from that, please do put them in the chat. Another one another theme is around the banks. Do all banks participate? And what if your bank isn't an SBA lender?
Great question. No, not all banks are participating, is my understanding. The number that I heard was that there are approximately 5,200 banks in the nation, and there are about 1,200 participating in this program. That you take that with a grain of salt. Those were just the last numbers that I'd heard. And part of that is the implementation. With something coming through so quickly, particularly a very small bank may have a hard time recovering from a loss that they may take from this because they haven't had the chance to fully vet it. I mean, I'm not here to speak to why a bank would or wouldn't participate, but no, not every bank is participating. I have seen that there are some non-bank groups that are trying to provide a way for folks who are unbanked or are not who are not with their who their current bank doesn't participate, that they may have a conduit to apply for this as well. I haven't seen names as far as where you would go for that. I just know that it's something I have read is being worked on.
Excuse me. All right, great, thanks. Another one is, are non-US citizens eligible?
That is a very good question. And I believe that, I was looking to see if I had an FAQ real quick that had that. My understanding is that a non-US citizen with a US-based business, if they have permanent resident status, could apply for this. That would be a question specifically that person would want to ask their bank, though, to make sure that that is. I haven't had to deal with that one yet, so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Moving through the list. A question is, if we applied for the early EIDL EIDL loan, do we need to reapply due to the changes that have been made to the portal? So this is specific. Yeah,
well, based on what I heard just a few minutes ago, yes, prior to the 29th, if you had applied, you may want to go back in and reapply for that EIDL.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I filled out the CARES form that Banner Bank sent out to me, but haven't heard back. Should I apply another way or wait to hear back?
You should wait to hear back. I know that there have been tens of thousands of CARES forms that have been submitted, and we do have a team working around the clock to get those into a format that can be loaded into the DocuSign and sent to you so that you can apply. You should have received a confirmation email of some sort today or yesterday. If you hadn't, but you did turn in the SBA CARES form, you should be receiving it very soon. Check your spam filter and see if it got dropped into your spam folder. I know one of my clients, that was a problem. But as long as you've received that, it means that they are working on it and they are going to get you an application.
Gotcha. In the press conference last week, I'm just reading verbatim, so I'm going to say I, but it's actually whoever's been asking this. In the press conference last week, I was pretty certain that the head of the SBA and Secretary of State said there will be other programs for sole proprietors. Do you know if that's true?
I have not heard of additional sole proprietor programs. I do know that specifically this PPP program does include sole proprietors.
Okay, great. And another one is, what if one bank denies you? Can you file with another bank?
That's a very good question. I'm struggling to come up with a reason why one bank would decline you that would even make you eligible to try anywhere else. There's no personal guarantee on this loan. I mean, really, the standards to get it are pretty low. There's not much of a barrier to entry on this. So, you know, I would think that a decline would really only come from if you wouldn't be able to prove your payroll in some way, if you wouldn't be, you know, if you weren't able to do some sort of supporting documentation, or B, if there was just something about your business structure that was not compatible with the abilities of the SBA. And yeah, I don't know. That is an interesting question. I will say that some banks, actually a lot of the banks that I've heard of, are at this point only able to help clients who have a business relationship already. And that is because of some of the regulatory requirements as far as what they need to pass on to the SBA in order to legally give you these funds. And so you would, at this time, you would also have to have those multiple relationships with different banks, which is not unheard of, but is uncommon. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure. I think you probably could.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of this is being figured out as we go too. So
a lot of it is being figured out as we go.
From this week to next.
Yes, it's minute by minute at this point, really.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, you said that some of the traditional kind of barriers that might prevent small businesses from securing loans feel like they might be a little bit more relaxed. You mentioned the personal guarantee. I'm wondering about other ones like number of years in business or profitability. Are those factored into the consideration?
Those are not things that are asked for at all in the application. It's I really don't think that's an issue at all. From what I've seen, really all that is required is that you have been in business since that February date of this year, and that you are able to show that you are paying someone, whether it's yourself or an employee, in order to keep your business going. I don't think profitability plays into it in any way. I mean, we're not asking for business plans. We're not asking for, a P&L or credit score. It's none of these things are being asked for. The SBA has some minor barriers, and that is part of the questionnaire. But yeah, no, those things that you mentioned, Raj, no, it's not part of it.
Okay, so I guess this has already been emphasized a couple of times, but quite different from any traditional loan that you might ever seek.
It is. It really, the goal is to get as much money into the hands where it'll do the most good quickly.
Right. Okay. This question's been asked more than once, but it sounds like a few folks have applied through Banner Banks. They're wondering, when is Banner Bank projecting to send the emails out with a link to those in queue this week?
I cannot give a definite time that those will be received. Just know that it's my understanding that some have gone out and that they are continuing to go out throughout the week. So there's a mountain of applications, or not applications, but CARES forms. There will soon be a mountain of applications. And as those are processed, they're put into groups that are then being sent to everyone's email. So I would tell everybody, just absolutely, we're working as quickly as we can on it. Hang tight and watch your email for that. It is a priority to get those applications in your hands.
Sure. Another question. My bank is adding stipulations regarding my credit to the application. Is that typical?
That is a good question. I'm trying to think of a great, really very protect myself way to talk about what other banks may or may not be doing. Having not seen that, I can't really comment on it. I will say that I don't believe that the application asks for a certain credit score.
Got it. Okay, another one sounds like somebody who also banks with Banner. They just want to confirm which tax forms to have readily available for the application. I think the 921 and the 2019 W3.
Yep, the 941 for 2019. If you don't have that yet, then your 2019 W3. If you don't have either of those, something showing your payroll records for the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think you touched on this, but just to maybe go over again, because this is true for many folks. If your staff are paid as 1099 contractors, can you apply?
they should be able to apply on their own behalf for this, as they are independent contractors. If that's how you're paying them, it's my understanding that they would not, that wouldn't qualify as payroll.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Assuming I understood that correctly, I think that's I think that's how it's being handled. Because
right.
as an independent contractor, I know that you do have the ability to apply on your behalf, on your own behalf.
So the businesses that are paying for labor on 1099 wouldn't be able to count that as payroll?
Right, because essentially then they would, it would be essentially paying for the same person twice.
Because the 1099s will also be applying.
Right. Right.
Okay. This is an interesting question. Out of curiosity, what does a bank get out of a forgivable or 0.5 interest percent loan? What's in this program for the bank?
That's a good question. So, this is one of those times when banks get to prove that they are not the evil capitalist organizations that the media sometimes makes them out to be. Truly, there is not a lot that the banks are going to get out from that, aside from helping their community and helping their small businesses and their clients. That's really what it is. We're not going to gain really a great financial benefit. There is 100% government guarantee, so there's very little risk. But when you factor in the amount of time and energy and our payroll and everything that is going into facilitating this program, I can't say that the banks are going to come out in the black on this particular program. It's a service that I'm glad that Banner is participating in, and that I'm glad that I'm able to provide to my customers.
And I know everybody here is glad that you're doing that as well. So thank you, Jason. Okay, here's a question. We are a seasonal employer. If I run payroll January 1st through December 31st, 2019, I get an FTE of 25. If I run it now, I have an FTE of 7. I'll be ramping up in July. What is the payroll period to base our loan against? The full year, something different.
I know that earlier when I said that there were a couple different calculations that can be used, seasonal employers are one of those that get a slightly different calculation, is my understanding. I do not know what that is offhand, but I know that there is a program built into this for seasonal employers. That would be something, if your bank, when you get your application, if it doesn't provide you with the way to handle that, then you would want to contact your banker and get an answer on that, because I do know that there is one. I apologize that I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Hey, Raj.
Yes, Jennifer.
Yeah. I'm on the Oregon Rain team, and I've spent a lot of time looking at the PPP. And I think, and I know a lot of things changed right up to the last minute on this, but I think for the seasonal companies, you would look at the snapshot February 15th through June 30th. That's my recollection of what they said. You would use that time frame to calculate your payroll.
Interesting. And the idea there being that those couple of months are the ones that are likely to overlap with when COVID's going to have its most dramatic impact.
I don't know what their thinking was. I couldn't speak for that. I just know I remember reading that. So unless it changed at the last minute, that was what it was at some point last week.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
And then Corey right here, also on the RAIN team, I'm going to paste a link in here, and this is from the SBA, sort of their official, the final PDF that has a lot of the rules, that has some of those example calculations.
Awesome. Okay, another question. When does the payroll start counting as against the PPP? We have already incurred 3 weeks of sick pay to all employees PPP wants us to hire. The governor wants us to stay home. Does sick pay to people to not work count as payroll during this time?
Yes. Sick pay does count.
Okay,
Yeah.
simple. Great. Another one, is there guidance on what payroll reductions mean? For example, if the loan covers 10 employees, but a business now has 12 and they lay off 2, is that considered a payroll reduction or not?
It's going to be based on that average that you're putting in. So if you've got, if you've, for whatever reason, hired 2 since the COVID situation has began, which if you're in that position, congratulations that you're able to hire right now, then that wouldn't be counted against you. It would be your prior year average for that FTE or your February, end of January, I believe, to February average that you're using for your FTE and your payroll. So it'd be a reduction from that average number that you're pulling that would count against you.
Great. Another Banner specific question. I have a here to help form from Banner, NonUS Bank. I filled it out. Where do I email it to? And where do I get an application?
Okay, so that is going to, here, let me turn my head here to look at a different computer to give you the exact email address that you want to send those CARES inquiry forms to. And that is Banner SBA-CARES loans at bannerbank.com. Banner SBA-CARES loans at bannerbank.com is where you want to send your Banner Bank CARES forms. That will then get you in line to have an application sent to your email.
Cool. Jason, would you even mind typing that into the chat for folks?
If I can figure out how to use the chat, yes, I will. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Oh, no, wait a second. I need to send that to everybody. Apparently that was a private message I just sent. Okay, there we go. Please note that that's not for general correspondence. That is really just where you should be sending those CARES forms that you fill out that just has your basic information on it. If you have any other questions, you should definitely contact your banker.
Cool. Okay, another question. Can we factor in unemployment tax, Lane County, or the Lane County transit tax as related payroll expenses?
Let me see here. I believe yes. I'm trying to find where I saw that. But yes, my understanding, and I'm not finding the specific wording. My understanding is that gross pay is what you're doing, is what you're entering in. Yeah, that. Let me try to find that, but you can go ahead with another question while I look at that.
Sure. Yeah, and Corey just dropped into the chat a fairly long list of what qualifies as payroll costs.
Perfect.
Yeah, and one of the qualifications was payment of state and local taxes assessed on compensation of employees.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Corey.
If we plan to have new employees for 2020 that we did not in 2019, can we use projections? And again, this is from a seasonal business.
My understanding is no. I haven't seen anything that allows for projections. It's all based on past performance.
Yep. And a question that's maybe or maybe not within your wheelhouse, but Wells Fargo just closed its window for SBA loans. Do you have any advice for what Wells Fargo clients can do?
First, I would say I'm sorry that you're in that position. That is not very good. I think that your best option at that point is to look into keep your eyes peeled for those non-bank conduits that are being looked into. I wish I had a link to send you that you could go to for that. I would say another option might be if you do have any type of relationship at another bank, it may be worth at least asking them if they would consider looking at your application at that point. But that's just that's a really difficult situation. I'm sorry.
And we do have a list that Senator Merkley had published of SBA approved banks in the state. But as you were saying, it sounds like people need to have had those relationships prior to February 15th in order to apply.
At least prior to, I mean, in some cases, yes. In some cases, prior to last week is fine. It seems like it's very difficult for banks to follow the regulatory guidance that they've been given with non-clients, with those who don't have established banking relationships with them.
Sure. Well, and this might then answer this next question. Can you apply if you are not a current customer with Banner Bank? This person says, my bank isn't participating.
At this time, no, we are not accepting applications. We were through Friday of last week, but at this time, no, we're not. That's not to say that it couldn't open up soon. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think I do think one thing that this made me think of that's kind of important to mention is, you know, I don't believe, I know that there's incredibly high demand, and I know that a lot of people need a lot of help. That being said, I think that this program, you know, the end date is June. I don't think the money's going to make it to June. Mm-hmm. I also don't think it's all going to be gone by the end of the week or the end of next week. That's strictly my opinion. But you know, I will say that every single bank in the country that's participating is having the exact same challenges in getting these applications turned in and getting money from the SBA on this. And so, you know, we're all in the same boat, and I honestly do not see it running out, you know, I think we're talking weeks instead of days and hours, if that helps anybody.
That does. To be honest, that's surprising, because I was personally curious for my business. We work with Chase, and they have like an intake form that then they said they'll follow up with you on. And I was concerned that, you know, by the time they follow up, the funds would all be gone. But it sounds like that's.
I think yes, it is. It will run out. It's not going to make it to June, to the projected June end date. I'm positive of that. But you know, looking at the cap that there is on the loan amount that any one business can get, you know, I feel that it is structured in such a way that there will be time. That's not to say that if you have the opportunity, you shouldn't apply immediately. You really should. You should get the process started right away. But if you haven't received an actual application, if you haven't, you know, been able to get that confirmation today, I also wouldn't panic over that. It's not it's not worth panicking yet, for sure.
And then our team member Jennifer just dropped in the chat the list of the SBA lenders that was put out by Senator Merkley's office.
I'm sorry, Brad.
Yeah.
Quickly wanted to say, it sounds like maybe that Senator Wyden might have been involved in that too. So I just want to make sure that we're giving credit where it's due. I also wanted to ask Jason, so for people who maybe bank with a bank or a credit union that is not doing these loans, they're obviously in a difficult position because they're going to be at the back of the line, right? And so you were referring to some other organizations that maybe they could do this loan with. And so I was wondering, on the list that Senators Merkley and Wyden put out, there are these groups called Participating Certified Development Companies, like Cascade Capital Funding, CCD Business Development. Are those the type of places you are thinking about?
Yeah, I think those are places that will probably step up because they have familiarity with the SBA process. You know, I know that one that I work with on a regular basis is Community Lending Works, which is local here. And I just checked their website before this, and it didn't seem that they had any information on the PPP program yet. So I don't know if they'll be participating or not, but there are those little CDCs are great. Yeah, I think they may become a great resource for some of these folks who are in a really difficult position with their current bank. Hopefully,
okay, yeah.
I hope something happens for them.
Right. Community Lending Works, I believe, is not going to be doing this. We spoke to them last week, but there are a few micro lenders like them on this list: Mercy Corps Northwest, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon, and Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs. So
good. Yeah.
So those are just leads for people who find themselves, you know, banking with a bank or a credit union that is not able to process a PPP loan. The link that we put in the chat, you could use that to try to network to a place that maybe you could submit a loan. Is that right?
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Great. Well, I think the questions are starting to slow, but there are a few more. So maybe we'll take the next 3, and then if there's additional questions, we can follow up with them offline. And we will be sending out a recording of this video to everybody that's here, as well as the slides and the links that we've been discussing in the chat. But okay, here's one more. Have you heard of anything to the effect that the EIDL will be folded into PPP forgiveness?
Yes, it is. The SBA has said that. So, like I had explained earlier, that if you do receive that EIDL loan, any part of that is not required to be repaid will decrease the amount of PPP that can be forgiven. So they'll only forgive a certain amount of money. They're not going to let you forgive both of them. That's my understanding. That's the guidance from the SBA.
And just to flesh out an example, so let's say your payroll, the total amount that you applied for was $15,000, and you had already applied for the EIDL and got that for $10,000. Then the forgivable amount would be
the max forgivable then would be $5,000 through the PPP. Yeah.
Okay. So the first kind of $10,000 would be considered already forgiven.
Yes.
And then the remaining part would be what you'd be responsible for.
Yeah. That's how it works in my head when I when I read what the SBA has said about that. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Cool. Okay, another question is, what can not be included as wages, such as FICA tax or other things?
Great question. And I think we did get the list in the chat, right, of what can be. Because I haven't seen a list that says this cannot. I've just seen the list this can, which makes me believe that the SBA meant for that to be inclusive. Like I say, I think didn't Corey drop that in a little bit ago? Yeah. So I would I would take a look at that.
Okay, and then why don't we do one more question, and then I know there's going to be more that come up. So again, we will follow up with opportunities for more questions about this. But what if you use the idle 10,000 for other legit business expenses besides payroll? Would it still be considered deducted against the forgivable amount?
Based on what I have seen from the SBA, my understanding is that yes, it would still count against what's forgivable in the PPP. And yes, that idle loan can be used for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, I've yet to see anything that said that you can, that based on how you use it, it won't affect your PPP forgiveness.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Jason. I feel like there's a lot in the air and a lot to be figuring out, and really appreciate you taking the time to help us navigate it all, and for all that you and all the other banks are doing to help stabilize what is a very tumultuous time. I just want to push towards a few more things that we have to offer. We do have some resources here, and again, we will be sending out these slides, so you'll get these links, including the idle application, the SBA Paycheck information, and several resources tied to the PPP program. Again, we are doing workshops every Monday from 2 to 3 p.m. These are the next 3 that we have lined up. We'd love to have you join, because even in this moment, businesses that are taking the time to rework what they're doing and pivot in the classic entrepreneurial sense are going to be better positioning themselves to come ahead from this. So we're hoping to create content that's really specific and relevant to you in this moment exactly. So Mondays, 2 to 3, you can register following the link that's at the bottom right of the screen, which is oregonrain.org/events. And then again, every Friday at 9 a.m., we are doing weekly entrepreneurial support meetings, and these are unstructured, open-ended conversations for anybody who's a rural Oregon entrepreneur or beyond, who just wants to feel connected to this community, because we know that entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, and we also know that these times we need community more than ever. So with that, we'll say thank you. One last thing is that if you do want to hear additional topics that aren't included now, you can drop them in the chat at this point, or you can always email them to our Executive Director, Caroline. Her email is Caroline@oregonrain.org. And yeah, we really want to be as valuable to you as we can be, so please do lean on us, because we're here to help. And with that, yeah, more important than anything, just stay well, stay calm, stay positive, and help each other out, because we're all in this together. Thanks again to Jason for offering words of wisdom and advice, and for everybody for coming out. It's been a good one, and we'll be following up with email very shortly.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.